Oh, welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, I have got great news, Shane, for the audience. We have officially been approved for SEC Media Days. First time, Shane, the podcast has been credentialed. I've been down there before, but under a previous outlet. So this is, I know some people may laugh at us and all that for making a big deal of this. There's going to be everybody down there, but it's a little validation for all the hard work we've been putting in and the really big ups to the audience, because without the audience, stuff like this, going to the College Football Hall of Fame to cover SEC football would not be a possibility. So I'm on cloud nine right now. How about you?
Me too, man. I told you prior to, I never made it to college football, but I made it to the College Football Hall of Fame. Clearly, whoever approves these things have not listened to the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I'm excited, brother. It's something that we've been talking about for a long, long time here. But to think about where we came from, it seemed like just yesterday we're phone interviewing. I'm under a gazebo smoking a cigarette, drinking cold beer. I 10 people listening at most, to go from there to this is just, it's awesome. It's the next chapter of that SEC podcast. And like you said, we couldn't do it without the listeners and the support that we get from those guys and girls. And I can't wait, man. You guys going to see some. We're going all in too, man. When we get down there, we're gonna just give you the experience as well, so you can kind of feel the behind the scenes of the SEC Media Days and the kickoff to the season, baby. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, and I hear you cracking open a cold one, Shane. I'm drinking one too.
Can we drink
here
down there? I don't know. What's the rules? I don't know. Can we walk around with a cold beer, or is that frowned on? Just kidding. I'm not going to get us kicked out just yet, Mike.
Well, speaking of getting kicked out, we may do it right here, Shane, because I just poured me some Kentucky bourbon here to celebrate the news. 4 Roses bourbon. This was actually sent by one of the fans after one of them famous bourbon bet games, Shane. And why am I doing that? Not just for SEC Media Days. I'm not trying to turn into a drunk here, but we are going to continue our fall camp preview series, Shane, with none other than them Kentucky Wildcats.
Doggy.
Wildcat fans, Shane, are on cloud nine right now after a 10-3 season, second place finish in the SEC East. So you ready to do a deep dive on Mark Stoops' latest team out there?
Oh, am I ever. And for those listeners that didn't catch up, we did Tennessee. Now, we're very optimistic. So I've retired the Razorback helmet. I am pulling out the Kentucky bourbon, the Big Blue Nation, blue glasses, blue Kool-Aid. I am all in on Kentucky. So you got to remember, this is optimistic scheduling. Not only are we doing a deep dive of each team, but we also like to look at the schedule at the end and think about what is the best case scenario for this ball club. Tennessee, I had going 10-2. Mike, not so well. What did you have Tennessee officially?
9-3, optimistically.
Optimistically 9-3. Then we jumped to Arkansas. I've got Arkansas best case scenario sneaking in to the college football playoffs with a 11-1 record. Mike has them at
10-2.
10-2, which I think fan support would take either one of those. And so Kentucky, I'm buying into the hype already, but you throw in a little optimism, who knows what we're going to get from these guys this year.
No doubt, Shane. And this was a program, of course, that couldn't even reach a bowl game before Mark Stoops got there. And early on during his tenure, they've won back-to-back New Year's Six bowls over Big Ten opponents, winning the Citrus Bowl over Iowa, winning 10 games last year. And the best way to sum up how great Mark Stoops has been there at Kentucky, Shane, he's one win away from tying Bear Bryant as the school's all-time winningest coach. So obviously 2 games away from being Kentucky's all-time leading coach, which he's going to, if he can get that win in Florida, just imagine we're sitting here talking about, we're going down to Florida. That should be a win for the Gators. Going down to Florida, that should be a win for Kentucky.
Yeah.
Dude, that's never in my wildest dreams did I imagine saying that when Mark Stoops got hired.
You struggled to say it just then. It's like, wait a minute. Wait, am I reading this right? It's like the prompter's on. You're like, who's messing with the words here? But no, this is where the program is now. And people, especially my beloved volunteers, they don't want to buy into the fact that Kentucky's going to be around for a while. This isn't like, I always think about Vanderbilt and what's his name with the anchor down push, and all of a sudden they just had this little flare, and Vanderbilt's fun, and they're winning ball games, and they're beating people they're not supposed to, but then they just flare out. And I'm not saying that happened with Kentucky, but in this neck of the woods, that's what they expect. Just a couple of good seasons, and then they're going to go back to what Kentucky does. And it does, and it's not going away, Mike. In fact, it's getting better. It's getting more diversified. This is, we're going to talk about it here in a second. They're becoming a program to be reckoned with, especially in the SEC East.
Yeah, no doubt, Shane, and a large part because of the fan base that's bought in, that's eager to support them Wildcats. Shane, how about this? Mark Stoops, 41-22 at home as a Kentucky head coach. He's got a winning record, 19-18 at home in SEC contests, which it took till last season to get there. But again, you got to factor in where Kentucky was when he took that thing over. But they're, at no point in time are they going backwards. They're going to remain a winning program at home, thanks to Mark Stoops and the tremendous job of his coaching staff. And we'll start right there like we do, Shane, with the coaching staff. We're bringing back defensive coordinator Brad White, that turned down an opportunity to be LSU's defensive coordinator. So when you're turning down the best of the best in college football, has got to tell you got faith in where you're at, right, where you're going, and what could be accomplished next fall in Lexington. So love to see that from Brad White. Unfortunately, the offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, jumped to the NFL, but how can you blame him going back to work for Sean McVay, the Super Bowl champion? So what did Mark Stoops do? He turned around and got Rich Scangarello, also from the NFL. So we're losing offensive coordinator, but we're staying with a similar style of offense. Right. Something that Will Levis, we'll get to him in a minute, but someone that he's got to be just thrilled is staying in that same NFL-style offense. Scangarello was at San Francisco, like I said, last year as a quarterbacks coach. He's been the offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, and he's actually, Shane, been a college offensive coordinator in the years past. So a lot to like about Kentucky's new offensive coordinator. And really, anytime you hire in or bring a new coordinator, that is a huge question mark. But I don't think Mark Stoops could have done much better if he wanted to stick with the same style of offense, short of hiring Sean McVay to be the new coordinator. You know what?
Well, and that's like the telltale sign that your program is doing well. When your coaches are being recruited at the end of the seasons, when you can go out and you can hire a position coach, and it's not you don't have to sell it on the program. How many times have you seen somebody and they're like, well, you remember, I'll never forget Mike DeBoard, and they're like, well, remember he coached Tom Brady. And it's like, what, back in the 80s? It's like, why are we giving this guy credit? If Kentucky doesn't have to do that anymore. When they go out, they don't just take whatever. They figure out what is going to make this program better. And that's what I like to see in a program. When your coaches are trying to get poached at the end of the season, you're doing something right.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of getting poached, though, that also happened with the inside linebackers coach, Shane, John Summerall. Yep. He's now the new Troy head coach. So, again, if you're losing a position coach to be a head coach.
Head coach, exactly.
That's, again, speaks to just, what momentum they have there in Kentucky, what quality assistants they have working for Mark Stoops. And he staying in the family, Shane, he hired Mike Stoops, his brother, to be the new inside linebackers coach, who last season was Florida Atlantic's defensive coordinator. He's been the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. He was Arizona head coach for 7 seasons. So man, you're getting a incredibly experienced position coach to come in there that has served as a head coach. You can't do much better than that. You know what?
I wonder when they go to like a family reunion, Mama's always got her favorite, she, clearly I was the favorite, but I'm just wondering which Stoop is the favorite coming in. I just think right now with what Mark's doing and the way he talks, because we've heard him a few times, there's some confidence coming out of Lexington.
Yeah, no doubt. And the only other staff change, offensive line coach Eric Wolford jumped to Alabama, but I love what they did here. They bringing in Zach Yenzer, who coached with Scangarello with the 49ers. So your new offensive coordinator and new offensive line coach already have that relationship, that working relationship. Right. There's not going to be a big, learning curve there for either one of them. And my favorite thing I learned about Yenzer this offseason, Shane, he studied under John Schlerman, of course, the noted Kentucky offensive line coach that tragically passed away during the 2020 season. So you're going back to the past a little bit, but you're bringing NFL experience with it. So you never want to lose a coach, but hell, Kentucky may have upgraded with Wolford leaving for Alabama, as crazy as that is, because they're bringing in someone that fits like a puzzle piece with the new offensive coordinator.
Right. That's it. Just make it work.
Now, as for the returning production, Shane, again, this is why a lot of Kentucky fans are fired up, brother, because 100% of the last season's passing yards is returning, of course, with Will Levis back in the fold. Many people have him as a first-round pick in the NFL draft. If he takes that next step, some people have compared it to, he could be the next Joe Burrow, as crazy as that sounds. He's on that path already to be that elite quarterback in the SEC, and if he takes that giant step, I'm looking at the schedule, Shane. There's quality quarterbacks Kentucky will be facing, but they have got to love the quarterback edge that Will Levis gives them this year, don't you think?
Well, yeah, you're going to see a lot of jerseys this year, man, with Levis on it. The hype is real. It wouldn't surprise me if you don't see some sort of Heisman campaign out of Lexington, because this has already been, as soon as he came out. What was it? McVay came out with or McShay. Is it McShay or McVay?
Todd McShay.
Yeah, McShay came out with that mock draft. They've been on fire. The pressure. I wanted to ask you because, and maybe we'll get into it here in a minute, but there wasn't as much pressure coming into the season for Will last year as there will be this. Do you think that? I don't know. Do you think that makes it more difficult? Or do you think that the high expectations creates a different type of atmosphere in the offseason, and maybe that bleeds into this season?
Yeah, it's certainly something that he's going to have to adjust to, because you're right. Hell, nobody knew who he was at this time last year. They just knew he was coming in. He was a transfer. I don't believe he was even there for spring football, if I'm not mistaken. I think he just came in the middle of the summer and won the team over. So there is that added pressure. He's getting, to my understanding, Shane, he's got all these NIL deals, which, again, perfectly legal. He should be doing for what he's doing for the Kentucky program. But there is that added level of shouldering the offense. But, hell, that's a lot easier than taking the field against some of these monstrous SEC defenders. And he did a hell of a job doing that. You know what?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think I always wondered about that, especially with quarterback situations. If you come in fighting for the job, then you see that competitive nature. It bleeds into the season, but sometimes you see a little bit of a lull if there's a guy that just knows he has the job. And I think we're not going to see that with Will, because there's all this expectations coming out of Lexington now. There's a lot of people expecting big things. They're expecting to see a first-round quarterback. So I think the hype couldn't come at a better time. So, I don't know. It's just my opinion, but I was kind of figuring out what you were thinking there.
Well, also, Shane, to back that up, you're seeing all these first-round projections. If he was already a first rounder, he'd be in the NFL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're basing that on projections and what he could be. So maybe that lights a fire under his ass where he says, man, if I work hard this offseason, it translates to the field, I will be not only a first-round pick, but heck, one guy had him as the first overall pick. You know what I mean? So we're talking life-changing fortune is within grasp, but he's got to put in the work. He's got to perform on the field. So what better motivator can there be than to hear that coming your way? You know what?
Yeah, no joke, man.
And, hey, he's not going to have to shoulder the entire thing himself, Shane, because Kentucky returns 95% of their rushing attack thanks to Chris Rodriguez, who's about 1,100 yards away from becoming the all-time leading rusher in school history.
Unfortunately, he can't go 1,100 yards past his residence, or his ankle bracelet goes off, right? Is just kidding. I had to make okay, I'm done. But is that cleared? Is he done with all that?
That's the thing. It's kind of up in the air. I've heard his status. He's going to be, season is not in jeopardy, but the expectation is he's going to be suspended. If you missed the news, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you hadn't missed it, but got a DUI, and then he missed his court date. I think there was some confusion with his attorney or what day he had to show up, and then there was other issues that I can't really comment on, but you compound all those, and it looks like he's going to be suspended, and you just hope that he's back for that Florida game week 2, because that could be the most pivotal game outside of the Georgia game on the schedule. You know what?
Yeah, that's just because I expect big things from Kentucky, and I joke. I don't know Rodriguez. I don't know his situation, but this is noise you don't want to hear coming into the season. You know what I'm saying? You just want to put this to rest, and hopefully they come out with something sooner than later.
Now here's the issue though with Kentucky's offense, Shane. Receiving yards, just 21% returning. Isaiah Cummings, 195 yards, is the leading returning receiver. They only have one receiver on the roster that has scored a touchdown in a Kentucky uniform. So that is going to be something that they've got to solve in fall camp. Also, the offensive line, they lost 3 starters to the NFL, and they're bringing back 2 guards, but even one of the guards, Eli Cox, is shifting to center. So just I don't want to say a total rebuild, because hell, that's all they do up there is build elite linemen up in Lexington. But that is also a big question mark that they are going to have to solve. And again, right out the gate, week 2, they have got to be up to speed when they travel to Gainesville. Otherwise, they'll start the year with a loss.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of programs that you worry about losing depth, especially at offensive line. But Kentucky, if they've proved you anything, it's like they're deep, They just reload, and next thing you know, there's a couple more kids on that team going in the NFL draft. So I'm not too worried about that offensive front. Now, obviously, the wide receivers, that's going to be the big question marks. Who's Will throwing to? So I'm sure we'll jump into that here in a little bit.
Yeah, speaking of being deep, Shane, that's where Kentucky is deep on defense. 67% of the tackles returning. Jaquez Jones had 85 tackles. They got maybe the best linebacking crew in the SEC. 58% of their tackles for loss, 65% of their sacks, and 78% of the interceptions are returning. So Kentucky's, they don't have a lot of starters returning, but they got a lot of talented, productive players returning for Brad White's defense, which, again, that's all they do. Aside from offensive line, they do defense up there in Lexington, and the defense should be pretty stout this year.
Yeah, it should be, man, and that's what you want. Like I said, especially in the trenches there, working on that defensive front. I think Kentucky's going to be great there, and not a lot of hype coming out of this, camp. There's not going to be a lot of people saying, "Oh, have you looked at Kentucky's defense lately?" But I think it's again one of those groups that at the end of the year you're like, "Oh, okay, I saw the development yet again."
Now, jumping over to the transfers, Shane, I think Kentucky came out ahead when you talk about what they've gained compared to what they've lost. They only lost one guy that was potentially a projected starter, cornerback Cedric Dort. He is now at Wisconsin. And they did lose about 6 or 7 other guys, Shane, but when you start going down the list and you see, okay, they're going to UConn, They're going to South Alabama. They're going to Iona. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, these are guys that are going down to see the field.
Play.
That's all it is.
Play.
Right.
And how many times has it been the other way? You think in years past when kids have left, they're going to other programs so that they can, get an opportunity to go to the NFL. Now they know they can do that in Lexington. So I think that's more noise than it is news,
Right. Now, as for the incoming transfers, here's where they've struck some gold here, Shane. Receiver Tavion Robinson from Virginia Tech coming in, 113 catches, 1,555 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, 30 career starts for Virginia Tech. So look for him, Robinson, to be a potential starter day one for the Kentucky Wildcats. Another guy they got that they love, offensive lineman Tayshawn Manning from Auburn. He started 14 games the last 2 years at Kentucky. So we talk about having pieces to replace on the offensive line. Tayshawn Manning should slide right into that starting lineup. Deetrin Smith, a defensive back at Ole Miss, 47 games experience, 22 starts, 223 tackles, 21 passes defended, 5 interceptions. Smith, he's probably going to start too for you on defense. So you're adding some talent there. They've added a defensive lineman from Ohio State, Shane Darion Henry Young, who was a top 200 prospect, 4-star. He's got 4 years left to play. And then here, right before we hopped on the pod yesterday, running backs added 2 to the roster. Ramon Jefferson from Houston State. He had just under 2,000 yards rushing, 20 touchdowns in 2 seasons at Houston State. And this is a guy that had offers from several SEC programs. He actually committed to Colorado previously, but backed off that. Now he's adding to the depth at Kentucky. And a name you'll be familiar with, Shane, D. Beckwith from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you look at all
these. That would hurt a little bit.
You look at all these pieces. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, Kentucky, big winner in the transfer portal this offseason.
Yeah, and you think a lot of SEC teams and the transfers, this is one of those programs that just kind of stands out. So, speaking of stand out, I'm going to put you on a spot, Mike. Out of all these transfers, who are your top 3 most impactful players this coming up season?
It's got to be Tavion Robinson, number 1. He may be your number 1 receiver at Kentucky. Tayshawn Manning on the offensive line. And then this may be a surprise, but I think Ramon Jefferson, the new running back they got with Chris Rodriguez potentially being out for a couple of games, they're going to need some added depth at running back. And I just love these guys from the smaller schools that take that step up and are eager to prove themselves at the highest level, because I think he's coming into campus with something to prove right away.
Absolutely. All right, good. That's kind of the way I was looking at it too.
Now, Kentucky, they did a hell of a job in recruiting as well. The number 14 overall recruiting class in the country, number 4 in the SEC. The only thing about Kentucky, Shane, they love to develop. They don't play a ton of freshmen, but we may see a couple of these guys because we're recruiting so well at Kentucky now. You may not be able to keep some of these guys off the field, and I'm looking at you, Kenyatta Goodwin, the 5-star offensive lineman. He may slide into a guard or tackle spot on the offensive line. Baron Brown, the number 16 receiver in the country, top 3 prospect from Tennessee. Dane Key is another receiver that is making plays there in the spring. So they signed nearly a dozen 4-star prospects in the last recruiting cycle.
We have to pause for a second.
And those dogs don't like it.
Yeah, no. I mean, all these people leaving Tennessee, I don't blame them. You got to start whispering when you're talking about hurtful things like that. Trained them well. Zaxby's just got here, so we're going to have to wrap this thing. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Go. We're good.
And next, Shane, I like to rank the offensive units. That's kind of what we've been doing on our previews here. And, there's 2 really solid options, I think, for Kentucky, running back or quarterback. But I'm going running back, Shane, because, again, we got Chris Rodriguez. I know his status kind of up in the air, but we got Jatwan McClain, Cavassier Smoke, again, Ramon Jefferson, and Justice Dingle. I mean, my goodness, Shane, and throw in D. Beckwith if he's eligible this fall. I don't know if there's a deeper position group on all of Kentucky's roster than the running backs.
There's not. The room is loaded, and that's what's scary because, when Kentucky can build a lead, they can just sit back and hand it to one of 5 of these guys and just keep doing what Kentucky does the best, and that is milk the clock. So this is the program they've created. There's flair with quarterback. There's flair with some of these new receivers, but you think of the bread and butter, it's the offensive line and it's the running backs, and they've got plenty of them.
Yeah, and apparently the new offensive coordinator, Rich Scangarello, he loves to go with 2 running backs on the field at the same time. So maybe that speaks to why Kentucky added a couple of running backs here with training camp right around the corner. So then next, of course, we go to quarterbacks. Will Levis, we've all said everything about him, just a tremendous player. But I love the potential of Bo Allen. Former 4-star, who's one of the top overall prospects out of Kentucky. And then they added a transfer, Deuce Hogan from Iowa. So we got some nice, talented depth. And you remember it wasn't that long ago, Shane, we didn't even have a quarterback in Kentucky. We had to go Wildcat for an entire season. Right. You know what?
It was fun, though. I at times, that Georgia game was terrible, but at times it was exciting and fun to watch. But, man, as a fan, you got to really appreciate that quarterback room now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we had to do it at the time, due to injuries and things like that. But now it's just the growth and development that we've seen up there in Lexington. This offense has changed its identity, and it all starts with Will. It all starts with Mark and what he's brought to the campus.
Now we also got a strong group of tight ends, Shane. Keaton Upshaw, Braden Bates, Jordan Dingle, Jack Monday. I mean, again, you need tight ends in a system like this, and I think Scangarello's got to be thrilled with the group. Again, offensive line, we all know, again, Kentucky, that's what they do up there. Mackey's offensive lineman, Eli Cox, he's been getting standout praise. The new center, Kenneth Horsey, has got 13 starts under his belt up there in Lexington. Already mentioned the transfer, Tayshawn Manning. Jeremy Flax could be one of your starting tackles there. So, and then we throw in the 5-star freshman Kenyatta Goodwin. This is a good-looking group that they may take a couple weeks to get seasoned, but this is something Kentucky can win with right here.
Oh yeah, definitely can, and they're going to. I mean, this is a team coming off 10 wins, Mike, and they got better, in my opinion.
Now, that means last but not least here, the receivers. Again, you got the transfer Robinson from Virginia Tech, should be a star. But aside from that, you got a lot of talent, but unproven talent with freshman Dane Key, Dakel Crowdis, who was banged up last year. Isaiah Cummings, again, he was the only receiver on the team that has a touchdown. And then DeMarcus Harris and Rashawn Lewis. So we've got pieces, but they're unproven pieces that these are going to be the guys that have to step up if Kentucky is going to have that dream season in Lexington this fall. Now, going over to the defense, Shane, again, the linebackers are just out of this world here. We got 6 guys we can win footballs with. Jaquez Jones, DeAndre Square, J.J. Weaver, the man with 6 fingers. Jordan Wright, they've been singing his praises for 2 or 3 years. Traven Wallace, one of the highest rated, I think he's the highest rated linebacker Kentucky's ever signed. And Derek Jackson. So, again, 6 guys that we can go to battle with here in the fall that arguably the best linebacking crew, if not in the SEC, certainly the SEC East.
And which one has 6 fingers? I remember
J.J. Weaver.
J.J. Weaver? Okay. Why didn't he get number 6? I don't understand. I mean, I think if you're going to lean into it, you know what I'm saying? Why did Tyrell get to wear number 6?
I did love when they were like 6-0 last year, and he had his hand up, and all the Kentucky people were like, "How many wins have we got?" Now, the defensive line, Shade, this is a group that lacks experience, but again, all kinds of talent with this group. This was the touted class they signed a number of seasons ago. They were all 4 or 5-star linemen: Octavius Oxendine, Travion Ripka, Justin Rogers, Josiah Hayes, and then the guy from Ohio State, Darion Henry Young, Kyle Sanders. So we're losing some leadership and some production on the defensive line, but again, this may be a more talented defensive line than what we had to work with last season. It's pretty wild, don't you think?
Yeah, and you got to remember injuries. Oxidine, didn't get to play there tail end of the season, so I don't know if that factors in. But this defensive front, don't sleep on them. They got some big bodies. That's the big thing. When you look at this front, this isn't this ain't a Vanderbilt defensive line. This is some big ass boys, and they're going to do their job in controlling that front, and that's why the linebackers get so much praise. So I expect Kentucky's defensive front to be all right.
Now here's a question mark I got for the defense, Shane. The defensive backs, Carrington, Valentine, solid player. Mm-hmm. We're bringing in Kendron Smith from Ole Miss. Joe Williams was a touted commit. Ty Asian, who had the pick 6 against Chattanooga that won you the game. Zion Childress, Andrew Phillips, Jalen Geiger. Again, we got pieces, but a lot of unproven, and we had to go to the transfer portal to kind of shore this up. So if there's a weakness, and help Mark Stoops, that's what he specializes in, is coaching up these DBs. The weakness may be this secondary.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it showed a little bit last year.
Right.
There was a couple of games that Kentucky really should have won, and the secondary just didn't do their job. So how does it look going into this season? Like you said, there's a lot more moving pieces, so it's really hard to predict here in the offseason, but you could see that there was some effort made, especially in the transfer pool. So maybe they seal that side of the ball up, because if they do, again, going back to offensive side of the ball, this is a Kentucky team that's not one dimensional anymore.
Right.
I think that's what got them in problems a lot of time when they just could run. If they gave up some of those big plays in the secondary, they weren't able to get back into the game. With Will and stuff, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But controlling the tempo on both sides of the ball is going to be key. And so, again, the moving pieces, the coaches see something, they're doing it, they're making an effort. So hopefully we'll see some improvement this season.
Yeah, and as for specialist Shane, they're bringing back the kicker, Matt Ruffalo, 26 of 32 field goals. So we got to feel great about our kicking situation, which is always a mystery in college sometimes. So you got to have that settled. But I know your favorite part, Shane, getting to this schedule. Let's break it down again. We got our blue glasses on here. Very, very optimistic about what these Kentucky Wildcats can do. And starting with the season opener, Miami of Ohio. We'll just pick our score for this one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be Miami. I think that would be a better game. But still, Kentucky's going to wax them here. This is a good tune-up game. This is a good chance to work out some of those kinks with all those transfers and stuff. I think this is a fantastic game to have on your schedule. So, yes, Kentucky wins. Expect a lot of moving pieces. I think they're still going to try to find out who's their starting roster, and you can do that with a team like Miami of Ohio.
Now, week 2, this is going to be the game of the first half of the season, no doubt, at Florida. You've beaten Florida 2 out of the last 4. You're catching them at a great time. They're coming off a Utah game, which, hell, everybody I talk to says Utah may be the pick in the Pac-12. So there's a decent chance Florida, Florida could be a good team. They could still lose the opener. So a lot to like about this game for the Kentucky Wildcats. What do you think, Shane? Kentucky going on the road in the second game of the Billy Napier era.
Such a fun game to watch. I think not just last year, but hell, you remember last time they were in Gainesville a few years back. You had Cash Daniels smashing the water bottles and pulling his stone cold stunner out there. So I think, again, when we'll get to the Florida Gators, that's a team that is going to be improving, but this is a Kentucky team that's already there. It's a night game. This is going to be fun, exciting to watch. I just don't see, like, later in the season, if these guys would have met, maybe we could have had more of a 50-50 game, but even not being optimistic, I really like the Kentucky Wildcats on this one.
Yeah, these two hate each other, so I cannot wait to see them battle down here.
It kicks off. It truly kicks off the SEC, man. When these two guys get going, it's like, damn, it's ready. We're here, baby.
And it's already scheduled, Shane. 7:00 Eastern, ESPN prime time. What a sight down there. You know what?
Absolutely.
Now, week 3, Youngstown State, another pick your score. I think Mark Stoops went to Youngstown, so he might go a little. They may only win by 60. He'll take it easy on them, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a shame they can't play this game 9 in the morning so we can just go ahead and get it over with, because this is not going to be a ball game at all. Coming off that impressive win with the Florida Gators, we're sitting there at 3-0. This team is starting to hum. This team is looking – they're already eyeing the Georgia Bulldogs.
How about next on the docket, Shane, another laugher. Northern Illinois comes to town. Should win this one by 30 points probably.
I've never really liked this school. I don't know why. Something about the logo or something like that. I tried to pull it off, I think, on an NCAA game. It's one of those I tried to pull off, and I was like, you know what? It ain't working out. You guys have not worked on your logo at all. That's the only thing I thought maybe they could have going for them, but there's just nothing fun in Northern Illinois. Have you been up there?
No, thankfully.
No, seriously. I think this may be the only thing. That and some I got some I think I owe some toll roads up there in Rockford. Other than that, there is nothing exciting coming out of Northern Illinois. There will be no excitement in this game either.
Now the West crossover, Shane, this could be a tricky game at Ole Miss. Ole Miss got you last time down there. I believe that was during the COVID season. But again, Ole Miss replacing all 3 coordinators, replacing a ton of talent. They have also hit the transfer portal, so it's hard to get a read on Ole Miss. But I think you got to lean Kentucky in this one, even though that the game's in Oxford. What do you think?
And it feels like I'm always leaning Kentucky when these two. I mean, I think I've lost money on this game several times because I buy into the Kentucky hype, I think, before a lot of people do. And right now, starting this season 4-0, there's just no doubt in my mind that they can beat Ole Miss Rebels. And there's some of these games that they should have in years past. So I think maybe our boy's off suspension at this point, and you can create some noise there and some excitement. But I just don't think Ole Miss is going to be as good as they were last year. So I got Kentucky winning pretty good here.
Yeah, the following week, Shane, another, this could be a really good game. South Carolina comes to town. I believe Kentucky has won 6 of the last 8, though. So, man, they have really owned South Carolina. I know South Carolina's on the upswing, got a lot of respect. Maybe if I was wearing my Gamecock glasses, Shane, I could talk myself into South Carolina winning at Kentucky. But I got my big blue glasses on. I lean towards Kentucky on this one, too.
And same here. And it's one of those that, at this point in October, we're going to know just how good or bad South Carolina is. And I just can't right now in freaking June predict South Carolina there. They're growing. They're getting better. But this is a Kentucky team that won 10 games last year. This is a Kentucky team that's got big expectations this season. I just don't see South Carolina holding up. Now, maybe if it was down there in Columbia, we could get a little bit more creative. But again, I just think Kentucky is humming here.
Now, a tricky game the following week, Shane, Mississippi State. It is in Lexington. Mississippi State got you last year. This has been a back-and-forth series. In Kentucky, you're playing so many games in a row. Looking ahead to that bye, you got to be careful that this is not a trap game. But Mississippi State will be coming off back-to-back weeks, Shane, against Texas A&M and Arkansas. So the placement's not great for Mississippi State either. So, again, I think I got to give the edge to Kentucky on this one.
Yeah, and again, optimism, because I absolutely love Mississippi State, and I can't wait to talk about these guys. But, right now we're talking about the Kentucky Wildcats, and I just the only fear I have is it is a potential trap game. I think, you're trying to get to that bye week. You got the Tennessee Volunteers coming up. Everything's going right. You've beat the Florida Gators. You've beat Ole Miss Rebels. Mississippi State's one of those teams that you can't just overlook, and especially this coming up season with the Pirate and Rogers down there. But I've got to give the edge to Kentucky. Again, this is a game that's going to be at home. It's going to be an electric environment. It's mid-October. I mean, this is college football. This is weather, man. This is college football when you think of it. So I doubt it's going to be an early game. I think Kentucky pulls away here and beats Mississippi State.
Now, the next game, they got 2 weeks to prepare for it, Shane. probably your favorite game on the calendar, the Bourbon Bet, Kentucky at Tennessee. That's Neyland Stadium has been a house of horror for the Kentucky Wildcats outside, of course, of their last trip down there. So can Kentucky conceivably win 2 in a row in Neyland Stadium? What do you think, you Tennessee homer?
Hell no. I mean, no, just kidding. That's what I'm supposed to say, right? No, the thing about Tennessee and Kentucky is that this game has been so close for so long, and I don't expect this season to be any different. And I think of some advantages. Obviously, the Kentucky had 2 weeks to prepare for this thing. You think the last time they were in Knoxville. You think of all the good things. And when I was trying to be optimistic, this is a 50-50 game to me, Mike. And if I told you any different, I'd be lying. This one right here, I don't know who's going to win. I don't know who's going to lose. And so I gave Tennessee the edge when I was optimistic for them. I'm going to give Kentucky the edge, being optimistic for them, because they've got the roster to do it. They've got the roster to beat the Tennessee Volunteers. They've got the offense to compete with Heupel's offense. So if I'm giving anybody the edge, and I'm leaning Big Blue Nation, I've got to go with them on this game.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, Shane, but I think this game means slightly more to Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Than it does Tennessee. Not to say it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot to Tennessee fans, but this is one that Kentucky thinks about all year long. And hey, I agree with everything you said. To me, it's a complete toss-up. I don't care where the game's played. So optimistically, I got no problem saying Kentucky wins in Neyland Stadium.
Oh, I mean, we're already talking shit to each other. You know what I'm saying? And you got Coach Marrow out here. I don't know how you say his name. I don't know how to read half his text, but whenever he does send him out there, he's always bashing on Tennessee. I love it. I absolutely love it. It fuels the fire, and this is why we have rivalries in college football. And I can't wait to place another bourbon bet with my boys from across the state line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The following week, Shane, though, at Missouri, this is a game I think 9 out of 10 fans just overlook and say, well, that's an easy win. But
yeah,
Missouri's gotten Kentucky a number of times over the years. I think this is a back-and-forth type game. I think Missouri's a little bit better than people have them. What do you think about this one?
I don't think it's a game, especially if everything is going like I'm predicting it at this moment. I don't think Mizzou's a team they're going to overlook. If they switch, Vanderbilt the following week, maybe you can do some sort of trap game scenario. But no, I think Kentucky, just top to bottom on the roster, it's just going to be tough for them to compete against the Big Blue Nation. Even, like I said, even if I'm not being optimistic, Kentucky's a top tier team. And Mizzou's getting there. So give me Kentucky here.
Well, who's not a top 10 team, Shane, is Vanderbilt coming up to Lexington. Vanderbilt, though, hey, all jokes aside, they have played Kentucky pretty well, actually, over the years.
Yeah.
Any chance the upset here?
No, not at all. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Put in the backups here.
Maybe look ahead to Georgia, though. Who knows?
There maybe if this is a noon kickoff type scenario, it's raining, and then you're like at half, they're up 7 points.
Yeah,
maybe it has one of those type feels, but no, I think if we're going best case scenario and Kentucky's gone through the gauntlet here, they're a top 5 team. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They are legitimately they're already talking about Georgia, but Vanderbilt couldn't come at a better time. This would be an opportunity for them, not so much a tune-up game, but this is a game that they should be benching some of their starters late in the third quarter.
Yeah, to rest up for that big one, Shane.
Yeah.
Georgia comes to town, game of the year potentially in the SEC East. Georgia, reigning national champions. They'll probably be undefeated themselves.
Oh, yeah. Imagine
an undefeated showdown here. Who you got winning this one?
Think about that, man. November 19th. This game sold out. You know what I'm saying? This is game day maybe here. They're missing an opportunity if they're not watching 2 top 5 teams go against each other, and the undefeated East teams controlling their destiny to the SEC championship, potential national championship. Kentucky doesn't get that many opportunities, but I think they could have one here. And all they got to do is take that home field advantage and take it to the boys of Georgia. So can they do it? No, I just don't. I mean, come on, man. I love Kentucky's offense. I love what they're creating up there. But Georgia, even my Tennessee Volunteer, anybody I talk to about Georgia, short of Alabama, or maybe even Texas A&M, this is a machine. Kirby has got some robots down there, and he is going to win another SEC, I think, potentially. So I think it will be a great game. I just think competitive depth is really going to be a factor in this one. It's late in the season. We're going to have some banged-up players. And when you just keep recruiting five-star athletes, you know what I'm saying? When you plug and play another one, there's not that much drop. And that's why Georgia does so well toward the tail end of the season. They're just deep. And I think if you could have gotten this game maybe flip-flopped with the Florida Gators, I think we would have had a better opportunity. But, Kentucky is going to be banged up like they are every year. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have to give the edge to the Georgia Bulldogs here.
Well, thanks for losing us our Kentucky audience, Shane. I'm going to be, drinking these bourbons like I am. You know what?
Dude, what Kentucky fan would be upset with the fact that they are undefeated in November, late November, right, against the Georgia Bulldogs, controlling their own destiny and having home field advantage? If you can get to that type of game and scenario, shit, I'd be happy. I'd be tickled pink. You know what I'm saying? Who cares?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm kidding there. But so then last game, Louisville, the rivalry game. This means so much to both fan bases. But Kentucky has officially flipped this bad boy, Shane, and it's just a damn shame for Louisville. The recruits they're paying for, they can't suit them up and play them in this game. You know what? Because they're going to need them when Kentucky rolls through them once again, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I passed a guy in the hall the other day. He had some Louisville gear on. And I asked him, I said, did you lose a damn bet or something? They didn't have no pretty blue shirts you could bought up there? Oh, buddy. You should have seen his face. His face turns red as that damn shirt. So, no, these guys still hate each other. Don't get me wrong. Kentucky hates a lot of people. They hate Florida Gators. They really hate Tennessee Volunteers. But, damn, they hate them Louisville Cardinals, too.
Yeah, no doubt. So, 11-1, that's kind of right where I'd have it. And real quick, Shane, this is kind of how I broke it down. Games optimistically that Kentucky should win. Miami, Youngstown, NIU, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Louisville. Games unlikely to win, Georgia. And then the three toss-ups, in my opinion, at Florida, at Ole Miss, at Tennessee. So let me ask you real quick, Shane, like I've been doing for all these. Which game do you think is the most important to win for Kentucky's season? Is it at Florida, at Tennessee? Is it that Georgia game? Maybe even South Carolina?
Golly, Mike, can I? Oh, man, I want to pick two. Can I do
You can pick as many as you want.
Okay, I think, well, I just, obviously Florida.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate, beating the Florida Gators, it creates this momentum that we're talking about.
Right.
People still don't think Kentucky should ever beat the Florida Gators. And when you keep doing it and you do it back-to-back years, I just think it's big. It's big for that fan base. It's big for their recruits. I think, you're starting off a new coach's reign down there on the right foot if you're a Kentucky fan. So I think it's a very, very pivotal game. But it's hard for me not to circle the Tennessee Volunteers for all the reasons that we've already discussed. This is big brother, little brother, and they both expect to win. It's just, you know what I'm saying? This is a game that if you do all the right things and then you drop to the Tennessee Volunteers, then who cares about Georgia? I think this is a game. The more I think about it, I've got to put Tennessee 1A and then Florida Gators 1B.
Well, Shane, they say great minds think alike, and that's exactly how I've got it. Florida, Tennessee, the two most important games on Kentucky's schedule. But, hey, brother, another successful breakdown. I know you got dinner on the table, so I'm going to let you go here. Anything else before we hop off the line?
Well, real quick, because I want your thoughts. If you were to pick one offensive MVP, who's it going to be at the end of this season?
I love me some Chris Rodriguez, but it's got to be Will Levis, I think, and him taking that next step up.
And I think if Rodriguez was not dealing with this potential, we don't know what he's going to get.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was clear-cut number one myself, but I'm going Levis as well. What about on the defensive side of the ball? Is there an MVP that you're looking at?
You know, I don't think it's this may throw you for a loop here, Shane, but I think we need Trayvon Ripka to really step up on the defensive line. Be able, you just can't replace Josh Paschal, everything he did. I'm just so confident in the linebacking crew of Kentucky. You could pick any of the linebackers, and that would be a good, safe option. But they really need a dominant defensive lineman to step up, and I think that's got to be Trayvon Ripka.
Give me Jacquez Jones. I just think when you think of the talent back there, that's the one that's going to shine the most. Heisman candidate, it's Will, right? If you're putting your chips on anybody to win the Heisman out of Lexington, it's got to be Levis.
It's got to be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look at there, man. If let's just say my scenario happens, and Kentucky goes 11-1, loses to Georgia, do they make a college football playoff?
Ooh, I was betting you were going to ask me that, Shane, and it really just depends, I think, on how good Georgia is. If Georgia's undefeated, if Georgia wins the SEC, then yes, I think you have to rubber stamp Kentucky. Similar like we did the Arkansas podcast. Mm-hmm. If they lose to Alabama, Alabama's undefeated. You got to put Arkansas in. So flip-flop that. It really, unfortunately, you're put it in the hands of someone else. So, but that's the scenario for Kentucky to reach that college football playoff.
Oh, man. Well, that's all I got, brother. I am so excited that we're going down there to the College Football Hall of Fame and see all the SEC fans. We're definitely going to – hopefully we'll run into a few SEC podcast lovers while we're down there.
Yeah, we're going to bring gear to record and do all the stuff. So I cannot wait, Shane. Hopefully we don't get that revoked before the event. We only got a couple weeks there for them to revoke it, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But, hey, I know you got to jump off here, brother. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the entire audience. Stay tuned for more terrific content, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Cats.